The rally in artificial intelligence this year has been almost historic in terms of how narrow the market leadership is and how much value has been created in a relatively small number of companies, much of which we think is justified. Some of the obvious longer-term winners of AI, like NVIDIA, have been rewarded because there's a lot of certainty there. Where we've really tried to look for the next second and third level derivatives of what are other companies that are well placed to dominate maybe lesser known parts of that ecosystem, where they're particularly on the IT infrastructure side, and choose to invest there where there's going to be a very long runway for sustained growth, but maybe less appreciation by the market so far. You know, Europe's an interesting market in that it's, I think, perpetually unloved by most of the world. You know, there's plenty of geopolitical challenges. Growth tends to be pretty sluggish. So our strategy there has been really to focus on finding companies that, while domiciled in Europe, really have the majority of their growth and their revenues and profits in other parts of the world. And there are a lot of brilliant companies based in Europe that cater to Asia and the US. Certainly there's some of the most iconic luxury franchises in the world are in Europe, so that's been an area we've invested a lot. But there's also some very innovative healthcare companies. As an example, the one area we've tended to shy away from are European consumption stories, where we just don't see a lot of growth. Yeah. Well, it's been encouraging after, you know, a long stretch of pessimism in Japan that you're starting to see some signs of real improvement and optimism, and in addition to the stronger macro backdrop. I think in the semiconductor and also factory automation industries in particular, there's some really strong leadership position in some categories that have a lot of tailwinds and also a lot of runway for sustained growth. So we've been more focused in those parts of the Japanese market. Yeah, I think and we've thought about this as an analogy internally quite a bit, is that AI is potentially, you know, as much of a game-changing technology and changing the world as the internet was. But if we go back to when the internet first came out, most of the companies that were perceived winners and hyped up, most of them no longer exist today. So anytime there's this big of a transformational shift, I think it takes some time to see how the market is really going to evolve, and which companies are ultimately, as there's so much spending and investment chasing this theme, there's going to be a lot of competitive shakeout and relatively few winners versus the number of players. I think in AI today it's a little unique in that you know who a couple of the big winners are going to be, certainly NVIDIA and Microsoft at the top of that list. But then below that, you have a lot of parallels to the dot-com bubble, where a lot of companies in terms of end application, there's tremendous competition. The technology and use cases are evolving almost on a daily basis. So those more speculative applications to us are not really investable yet, but some of the more known IT infrastructure is intriguing and fraught with less risk.